Hi, everybody. Now you're stuck with both of us. So here we go. We're going to give you a couple of this is the wrap up. There's a total of about 5 slides, maybe 10 minutes left. So these are kind of like anything and everything that we think is most important. We're going to go on the material. We're going to stray off a little bit and try to give you what we think is a little recap and also the most important things. Phil had mentioned don't go back and forth more than twice. By the third round, the animosity starts to poison into the transaction. Phil, you had mentioned that the first time it's
all about the first time it's all about the house, right? People want to buy the house or make it their home.
Yeah.
Second time it starts becoming about the money. Okay, we're trying to money. Third time it can become personal.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. If it becomes personal, then nothing else works later in the transaction. Then that's when you have issue over possession, issue over condition, issue over inspections. It becomes personal, and they don't want to sell you the house anymore.
Yeah. So part of your job is to keep what I used to tell people, we got to keep our eye on the prize here, okay? And I would tell them, a year from Christmas when you're sitting around the fireplace, nobody's going to remember any of this stuff. But you are going to remember where you are. And I'm hoping that you're going to be in your new house and you're going to be happy with it, because that's going to be the bottom line for you. So
it's the month of Sundays, right?
Yeah, you're not even going to remember the back and forth with these people, And sometimes I used to have another, to Phil's point, I used to have another script where I would say, I'm going to take a risk with you and tell you that here's what I'm thinking. I believe that this is the house you want to buy. This is the house that a year from now you're going to be the happiest with. And we can go out into the marketplace again and try to figure out another house that meets all of your criteria the same way this one does. But I'm really worried that we're going to spend, if we did it for a month of Sundays, that we're not going to get there. I truly believe this is the best buying opportunity you have in the marketplace. And I'm really hoping we can figure out a way to get this to the finish line. Now, if you don't believe that, don't say that, okay? Please don't misunderstand me, okay? You have to tell people the truth as you perceive it, but you have to tell them the truth. Sometimes even when they don't want to hear it, even when they don't want to go $10,000 more on that house, even when it's worth it. They're not going to remember any of that stuff. They're just going to remember whether or not you got the job done. So you have to be the voice of reason. You're the one who has to tilt them back in the right direction.
It's that calm listening, emphasizing you're the professional, right? You're not criticizing anyone in other support. And then again, kind of why it's all about supporting your position, your position in writing.
Document.
Side, give it to the other side, let them show those things. Sometimes in the counter, as a listing agent, or even when you do the buyer's agent, putting it in writing so they can see why you're doing what you're doing. So actually, hopefully, they'll share it with their client if they're not strong on it. And away from this negotiating verbally, there's all sorts of downsides to that. We could.
Well, it's illegal. There's just a minor point, Yeah. You're not supposed to do it, okay, number one. And agents do it all the time because they don't. Which amazes me in the world of dotloop and stuff like that. It's like, why would you jeopardize your client, your transaction, and your license because you don't want to do 30 seconds worth of work on dotloop? It's crazy. Yeah. So, go ahead.
Yeah, don't tell them we have a deal until we have a deal, right? We don't have a deal until it's signed, and we do we don't need to Don't tell someone we have a deal. Hey, this is what it looks like. I don't have it in writing yet, but don't tell them you have a deal until it's signed, right? People change their mind. Don't get hung out to dry. Another offer comes in. Just you have to address those things.
Well, 9:00 at night, they call you up and say, hey, we're done. We got a deal. Congratulations. I'm really happy with you. You relay that to your buyers. You don't have anything in writing, right? 8:00 tomorrow morning, seller gets another offer for $10,000 more. I mean to tell you, it's not going to be pretty, okay? So here's what you want to tell them. We have an agreement in principle. We have a verbal commitment that this might work, but we do not have anything until we have it in writing. and we need to move forward as expeditiously as possible. So it's 9 o'clock. I want to have this back in this guy's hands at 9:05. Okay, and if they're good to go and you're on the phone, don't ignore everything I told you about meeting with them in person. Get it done now. Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah, don't let people hang out there too. It makes people nervous.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll get it to you in writing tomorrow, and it doesn't. Be very specific when that's going to happen. I actually said, if that's the offer they want to take, never take the offer too quickly. The first offer too quickly. There's a lot of people that like to negotiate, especially some cultures. It's very important to them. The buyer, it might actually make the buyer nervous that they paid too much or there's something wrong. So there's ways that's not just price and counter. Just think about that through who you're dealing with on the other side. Don't emphasize how easy it was. Oh my goodness.
Oh, that was a piece of cake.
Oh.
Yeah, parentheses, I'm not really worth much money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is completely, when offers are written, it's the first step, not the last, explaining what the process is. What can go wrong. You still got to get through the attorney's approval possibly, the inspections, the appraisals, financing if that's the case, just all the steps that happen. You don't want them to move into the next house when they don't understand the whole terms of the contract, right?
Tell them that you haven't sold your house. You haven't accepted offer on it. We have an agreement in principle to proceed, but there's 5 or 10 things that can go wrong, and I would literally tell them, here's what can go wrong, okay? The attorney could squash this deal. They could get cold feet. The appraisal might get sideways. The inspection might get crazy. Uncle Harry might pop out of the corner and just blow the whole deal up by scaring somebody to death. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. Don't pack. Start to plan for the idea. And then I would temper that. I would take it back in the notch by saying 80-85% of the time when we get this far, we usually get to the closing. But this is not a done deal, okay? And make sure that you temper everything you're doing by saying that to them. It's just critical. We had a guy move to Florida because he thought a property was going to close. He vacated his house because a realtor said, we're good to go. Don't worry about it. The closing will be next week. Well, it didn't happen, and things got kind of crazy.
Anything can happen.
Yeah.
I tell people it's not close till it's close. Satellite could fall out of the blue. Who knows, right? And make sure, don't gloat over getting a deal done.
Yeah.
It's insensitive. It's not a game. Tell them how hard you worked, but show them how hard you worked, right?
Show them
all the
process.
things that worked. I always talk about when you come in and you explain everything in your marketing, explain all the things you did to get you the best offer, the way we present it in our marketing, etc. So when you come in, it worked, right? It worked. We got you the offer. So they know all the things so you're worth the money, right? It's your marketing plan, how we priced it, how we marketed, what we did to produce, to talking to the other agents, etc.
Let them see your process.
Yeah.
Okay, let them see your process. Let them see your paperwork. Let them see your diligence. Demonstrate your value with value. Don't tell them about it. Do it. Okay, and they'll see it. Okay.
Yeah.
If you've reached an impasse on something, okay, you're $10,000 apart, everything else is resolved, I would sit down and I'd say, well, let's back up for a second and figure out everything that's been agreed on. And then I would go right through it, the possession time, how we're going to handle inspections, and the qualifications of the purchaser are agreeable to us. And I would check those points off with the seller and say, so now we're down to price. What we're seeing here is that we have a stumbling block left. We've got a lot of this transaction completed. And I know this might sound kind of, I don't know, it works a lot better than I thought it would the first time it was presented to me, okay? Because it helps them understand that there's only one thing left.
Well, you get them to say, you get agreement on
You get
all
agreement
those
on
other
the other
things, and then you
things,
can
yeah.
go back and isolate
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and then work through it with them.
Yeah.
And then there's techniques on how to do that. Let them come up with the solution sometimes, right? Because now they want to get it done. Everything else is agreeable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that can be pretty important. One of the things we said is don't negotiate on the phone, but sometimes to get that little bit of extra money, One of my favorite things is sometimes I'll reach out to the other agent and say, hey, I think we're there, but man, if you have a little bit more, if you could get your buyer to come up a little bit more and agree to this, I think we could have something if there's some room there. And interestingly enough is maybe they wanted to, sometimes they'll say, hey, I'd be good with this offer, but maybe would a couple thousand be even better?
Yeah.
I don't even sometimes suggest a couple thousand. I've had it where I've done this and the other agent said, hey, we just came up 4,000. Is that going to be enough?
Yeah.
Well, now your seller loves you because not only were they acceptable,
they were okay.
Two would have been happy, and now you just killed it, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's that important to them, but sometimes it can be where you're not countering and potentially losing that buyer.
Well,
but the same token, you can keep this open with doing this and have them put it in writing. We can finish this up, get it wrapped up right now. You'd be surprised the number of buyers agents will jump in and do that.
You know, it's worth noting that this is a subjective approach to this, okay? If I've got a guy who's 2 months behind on his payment, or he's transferred to Utah and he's living in Budgetel or whatever, I'm not having that conversation, okay? We're getting this deal done because he doesn't know it yet, but I'll be at his house until 2 o'clock in the morning if I need to, because I know that I owe him that, okay? So it just depends on their...
Absolutely.
If it's a discretionary move, if they're like, well, if we sell right now, fine. If we sell in a year, fine. Then you have a little more latitude to negotiate and advantageously to your client. But keep in mind their circumstances.
100%.
Keep in mind how imperative the move is, and if it's really, really critical, just get it done, okay? That's all they're going to remember.
We'll jump on the next one.
Okay.
That was about 12 minutes, guys.
Okay, assumptions about other parties. Assume that everybody doesn't know anything and they don't do anything. I can't tell you how many times I did a CMA on a property that should have been done by the listing agent before we even went on the market. I did a CMA. The seller's agent went over there and used my information to get the offer accepted with the seller. Now, some agents would say, well, that's not my job. And you know what I would say to them? There's thousands of dollars involved in this. I don't care what theoretically is supposed to be my job and what isn't. I'm doing that CMA because it's going to help my client get where they want to go. And then I can use it and say, you know, when they come back with an offer that indicates a higher value, I could say, you know, Tony, I want to get this deal done. You want to get your seller their money, you want to get the deal done, get paid. I want the same thing for my buyer. Here's my problem. You're looking at the same comparables I am. I don't know how to go back to my buyer and tell them they should pay more than what the market indicates the property's worth. I don't know how to do that. And I would literally give them the dialogues that they could go back to their seller with to get the transaction done.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, it absolutely works. Dennis had mentioned this at the very beginning. State your common objective constantly. Are they trying to get to Utah? What are they trying to do? This is the other, by the way, when you had the initial appointment, that's why the initial appointment is so important. Have those notes. Go back to what they're trying to accomplish and make sure you have those in front of you. Make sure you don't do anything silly. If possession's the most important thing or they want to take some, make sure you have those so you don't miss anything. But what's the common objective? We're finally going to get you into your new home. We're going to get you your first home. Whatever that is, the repetition of it's important. Provide them with the documentation materials. Oh my gosh, you guys all understand. It's not telling them, it's showing them. And then be super positive and constructive in this process. And it's really the role of the trusted advisor. You know, this is a small way to say this, but asking for permission. May I make a suggestion, right? This is typically, I understand how you feel. Most people in your situation have felt that same way. May I make a suggestion on how we can move this forward?
Help me understand where you are. Can I make a couple of suggestions with you before you make a final decision? I don't know what you think of those kind of things when we say them to you, but let me tell you something, they work. Because what I'm really doing is I'm taking that person's ears and I'm opening them up.
Yep.
So that when I have to disagree with them or maybe take a little bit different approach to an idea, this is important, they can still hear me, okay? And they need to be able to hear me before I can have an influence on their thoughts. So
Yeah.
these things are they're not unimportant. Okay? So, and never take any of this stuff personal. I'm sorry, but we live in, some people are nuts, okay? And you know what? You're not going to change that, okay? So you're going to watch people do the irrational. You're going to watch people do some things that are contrary to their best interest. And you need to go home, hang out, have some fun with your family, relax, and go to bed, no matter what, okay? Because you can't change that. So don't drive yourself crazy with this business. I'll give you an example. 80% of the transactions that you do are going to go to the closing table. 20% are not. So don't spend the money, okay? Don't count the money. Don't create that expectation in your mind so that you're bitterly disappointed when something you should already know is going to happen happens, okay?
Yeah, I always kid. The sellers, the buyers got to want the house more than you do.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
take yourself out of it and not make it personal. You want to be the solution, not the problem. Really basic things, guys. But when someone starts saying, we're not taking that, or we're not going to accept it, there's no we're, it's the seller's not going to accept it. The buyer isn't going to do this. The we're is out of there unless you
Yeah.
own the property,
Yeah.
right? And that when people get to that, they're really not doing anyone a favor. Be the agent you want to work with. I always say that. Be the agent on the side
love it.
transaction you want to work with. Guys, if they're difficult people, crazies, just separate from them early. You're not going to fix it here at the offer. It's, if they don't trust you, you can't help them, honestly. You have to be super intentional, structured, and disciplined in this approach. That's the difficult people class. Dig in, there's a reason. To be respected, you have to demand respect, really. I'm not comfortable with those situations. If things get out of hand, how do you help with that?
Well, yeah, you need to stop them in their tracks. If you're going to deal with somebody who's a little marginal personality-wise, maybe they have anger management issues and stuff, you need to call the behavior very, very quickly, okay? I had a guy one time who just liked to swear get about 6 inches from my face and liked to swear and stuff. And I finally got backed up about 6 inches and said, God love you. I guess this is how you get through life, but I'm not comfortable with it at all, okay? This is a professional situation. You need to use appropriate language. We need to lower the temperature in the room here or I'm leaving, okay? And from that point on, he was a choir boy, okay? So the faster you can call the behaviors, the quicker they'll turn, the ones you want will spin, okay? And the ones that are not going to change, you just need to get away from them. We teach a whole class on how to deal with difficult people. And they're not worth it most of the time. When the 20% that you can't get on the right page, get rid of them.
Yeah. So, some people are in difficult situations, and and they will be difficult. There's different from being crazy and unhealthy people.
Well,
You have to separate.
they might be in the middle of a trauma, okay? And sometimes you can talk them through that. Wow, you really seem upset. I know this transaction is important to you. And it's important to me too. You can lower your tone. There are ways to deal with reasonable people that are just under an incredible amount of stress. If they just want to scream at people for the fun of it, I don't think you should be there. So okay,
Like they're never going to sell their house, then find out someone else, right?
Have fun, tell the truth, work hard.
Yeah,
okay?
healthy people, you got to send to healthy people.
Yeah, if you get up in the morning, you go, oh my God, I got to go see Tom or Barb tomorrow morning. You probably might want to question whether or not that's a good idea.